But as of today, there are only 20 legislative days remaining in the House business year. 8 of those days being in November, 8 of them in December. So this would give the Dems at most 16 days in which to hold public hearings, constrained opportunities to do, well, urgent business, if that's what you would call their so-called kangaroo court, star chamber, Soviet-style proceedings they call. I think it's an impeachment inquiry. Is that it? Yes, that's what they call it. Joining us tonight, Fred Fleitz, national security expert, president of the Center for Security Policy. And Fred, let's start with, first of all, something that many people do not know, and that is you served as a senior staff member on the House Intelligence Committee for years, and you're watching a process that is very familiar, I guess, in so many ways. It has 2 personalities, Nunes and Schiff, who you worked with as a senior staff member. These 2 are locked in real combat over ethics, over propriety, over tradition, over secrecy, and the public's right to know. Was that divide present when you were there?
It wasn't. And in the history of the Intelligence Committee, and I've studied it because I'm writing a book on intelligence oversight, it's never been this bad. This started with what Congressman Schiff did when he was in the minority in the first years of the Trump administration. And, you know, it's rough being in the minority. You don't have many rights. Mm-hmm. But when we look at impeachment, there's a precedent where special rules are passed to make sure that the minority has equal rights and that the president's counsel has special rights. And the reason, Lou, is because impeachment is such a grave and serious matter.
Yeah, it was, without question, traditionally, we've had it happen 3 times. In each instance, there was a full floor vote,
yes.
A bipartisan vote in order to make certain that it is not a partisan exercise, a witch hunt, as the president correctly calls it, although it is so much more than that as well. It's an effort to overthrow the president for partisan political gain. It's that simple, it's that sordid, that petty, that vile, that disgusting on the part of Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff.
And Senator Graham was exactly right. I hope all your viewers will look at his resolution. It's excellent. And when the Democrats are confronted, well, why aren't you doing this? They give 4 objections. First of all, under the Constitution, we're not required to give them these rights. The second one is, well, if we gave them these rights, they would abuse them, which, think about what kind of a legal precedent that is. The third objection is, well,
there's nothing legal about this. This is all politics. It's all sorry politics.
That's right.
By really, I mean, not only venomous, but vapid figures in the Democratic Party. They're going to pay a hell of a price for this at the polls, I truly believe, in 2020.
Third objection, they just don't like the president.
No, well,
but the most important objection is, we know he's guilty. You hear this over and over again.
I've heard this, and so have all Americans from Schiff for over 2 years. He lied, and he lies today. And they are so taken by this moment in history that is so urgent and a constitutional crisis, as they would style it, that they fly off to Afghanistan and to Jordan in the midst of it. Now they have 16 legislative days remaining in which to do the people's business. And there's no balderdash.
And there's no presumption of innocence. Whenever you complain about the process, the Democrats point to all these things they said the president did. Nothing's been proven yet. And we can't run a process this important, this grave this way.
Well, what would the old Intelligence Committee, when you served, 2011, Pete Hoekstra, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, what would have happened if anyone had even suggested such a path as being pursued now by the radical Dems?
Well, it's so bad that when Schiff was in the minority, they were going to build a wall. They were going to build a wall in the Intelligence Committee staff to separate the Republican and the Democratic staff, because the Democratic staff were spying on the Republican staff. Documents are shared on both sides as a courtesy.
Are you talking about a literal wall?
A barrier. Yeah, they were going to build a barrier. We sat in one giant space in the basement of the Capitol Visitor Center because we're supposed to work together. Right. But things were so bad because of Schiff's politics, they were going to build a wall. Now, apparently the management of the House wouldn't allow that. But it got to, that had never happened in the history of the committee. This was all Schiff's fault.
Is that correct? Boehner and
Pelosi decided they weren't going to allow it.
But Boehner was the Speaker of the House.
Yes, they decided they wouldn't allow this wall to be built. It may have been, I'm not sure which Speaker it was.
How ecumenical and bipartisan of them. So Why is there no outrage here until just these last few days? Because everyone can see what is happening. Schiff and Pelosi have gone mad with partisan fervor and their greed for power.
We have to make the point to the American people that you have to have a fair process. And there's something that can be done in the Senate. The Senate Intelligence Committee has to take this up, subpoena people, and they need to subpoena this whistleblower. You and I have heard the name.
Richard Burr wouldn't even lead his own investigation of the special counsel in the Senate Select Committee. What in the world? Would you turn it over to Mark Warner once again?
Republican senators need to demand this because they have subpoena power. We've heard the name of this whistleblower. We need to find out who this whistleblower is. What were his partisan motivations? We need to get to the bottom of it.
Well, we know that they were on 3 levels at least. He was compromised by a partisan bias. And guess in favor of whom? The radical Dems.
At least 6 journalists have told me the name of this whistleblower. The House Intelligence Committee knows the name. So does the White House.
And it's all over Twitter.
But the American people are not being told who it is. Yeah. Why?
We know why. Don't we?
Of course we know why. Because this person put this forward for political reasons. It's the same reason why we have an unfair process.
And what happened to the second whistleblower? Also, apparently, a CIA officer attached to the White House at one point, also attached to the Schiff Committee, for crying out loud. This is preposterous on its face, and yet the left-wing national media continues to stand away as if it's a legitimate process, as if there are no questions to be answered here other than quid pro quo, quid pro quo. I mean, it's so tiresome to see complicity of this national leftist media.
You know, the Democrats promised open hearings later in November.
Oh, my
They're
God.
not going to be open. They're not going to give fair rights.
No,
there may be an open hearing, but the minority is not going to have the rights. This is another sham. They're going to put on a selected group of witnesses.
So what are the Republicans going to do about it? What is Mitch McConnell going to do about it? Right now, Mitch McConnell, if he had any principle, any guts, any loyalty, he would stand up and say, in the name of the Constitution in this country, there will be no trial on the basis of this illicit, illegitimate, and unconstitutional process. This is mindless, and yet they play their games. And it's nauseating. It's deeply, deeply sickening to watch.
I agree.
Fred, it's always good to see you.
Good to be here.
Thanks so much.